It started on a Tuesday morning, just like any other day. The sun rose over Earth's busy cities, and people went about their normal routines. Nobody knew that this ordinary Tuesday would change humanity's place in the universe forever. At exactly 9 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, every screen on Earth flickered, every radio signal warped, every digital billboard, every phone, every television. They all showed the same thing. A message from the stars. The beings on the screen weren't human. They sat in what looked like a grand chamber, their forms tall and elegant, surrounded by technology that made Earth's best computers look like children's toys. They called themselves the Galactic Council. People of Earth, the main speaker announced, its voice translated perfectly into every human language. We have watched your development for centuries. While you have managed to reach your moon and send primitive probes to nearby planets, you remain far behind the galactic standard. In New York, crowds gathered in Times Square, necks craned upward at the massive screens. In Tokyo, millions stopped in the streets, their eyes fixed on their phones. In London, parents held their children close as they watched history unfold through their living room windows. The speaker continued, "Some council members suggest we should ignore your world for another 1,000 years. However, we have decided to offer you a chance. A challenge, if you will, to prove your worth." Dr. Robert Freeman, sitting in his small office at NASA, leaned forward in his chair. His coffee went cold, forgotten, as he scribbled notes frantically. This was the moment scientists had dreamed of first contact, but it wasn't going as anyone had expected. "Your challenge is this," the alien announced. "Create a device that can safely harvest energy from a black hole. You have 5 Earth years to complete this task. Success will earn you membership in the Galactic Council. Failure will result in your world being marked as unready for galactic society." The message ended with technical specifications appearing on every screen, complicated diagrams and mathematics that made even the world's best scientists scratch their heads. Within hours, the world changed. Emergency meetings were called in every major government. The United Nations convened a special session. Scientists around the globe began downloading and studying the specifications. In his office, Dr. Freeman looked at the equations floating on his screen. "They think we can't do it," he muttered to himself. "They're testing us with something they believe is impossible for our primitive minds." The next day, world leaders made their announcements. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on something. Earth would accept the challenge. Politics, old rivalries, and conflicts were put aside. The survival of human dignity was at stake. "They called us primitive," President Williams said in a global broadcast. "They expect us to fail. But they don't understand something fundamental about humans. We don't give up. We don't back down from challenges, and we certainly don't accept others telling us what we can't do." Teams were formed. The brightest minds from every corner of Earth were brought together. The Galactic Council had left observers, tall, silent figures who watched humanity's efforts with what seemed like amusement in their large eyes. One observer, standing in the newly established World Science Center, turned to its companion. "They're using physical paper to make calculations," it said in its own language. How quaint, how primitive. But they missed something important. On that paper, Dr. Freeman had drawn a simple diagram. It wasn't complex like the alien specifications. It was basic, fundamental, and it showed a completely different way of thinking about the problem. "Maybe being primitive isn't so bad," he said to himself, looking at his drawing. "Sometimes the oldest tools are the best ones." As the first day of humanity's greatest challenge ended, the sun set on a changed world. The stars that had always looked like distant diamonds now held something new. A challenge, a threat, and most importantly, an opportunity. Humanity had 5 years to prove itself to the galaxy. The clock was ticking, but in offices, laboratories, and workshops around the world, humans did what they did best. They got to work, ready to show the galaxy that primitive didn't mean what the Council thought it meant. The challenge had been set. Now it was time for the response. 3 weeks after the Galactic Council's announcement, the World Science Center buzzed with activity. Hundreds of screens showed different black hole simulations, while scientists from every country shared ideas over cups of strong coffee. Dr. Freeman stood at the front of the main hall, looking at the gathered crowd of Earth's brightest minds. Behind him, an alien observer watched with what looked like boredom on its face. "Our usual ways of thinking won't work here," Dr. Freeman said, pointing to the complex alien diagrams. "They expect us to copy their advanced technology, but I think that's exactly why we'll fail if we try." The room fell silent. Even the alien observer tilted its head slightly. "Look at this," Dr. Freeman continued, walking to a simple whiteboard. He drew a basic circle. "This is how they try to harvest black hole energy. They fight against its pull. They use massive shields and barriers." He drew more circles, showing the alien approach. Then he erased it all and drew something new. "But what if we stop fighting it? What if we work with a black hole instead?" The alien observer made a sound that seemed like a laugh. "Primitive thinking," it said in perfect English. "You cannot bargain with a black hole." Dr. Freeman smiled. "No, but we can dance with it." He explained his idea using simple drawings. Instead of building huge barriers to fight the black hole's power, they would create a system that moved with it, like a surfer riding a wave. It was a basic idea, something any child who had played in the ocean could understand. The other scientists started nodding. Dr. Mary Thompson, a physicist from Australia, jumped up. "Like a water wheel," she shouted. "We don't stop the river, we use its flow." The alien observer stopped laughing. Within days, Project Prometheus was born. While other planets might have fancy quantum computers, Earth had something different. Millions of years of working with nature instead of against it. Teams around the world began building test models. In Japan, engineers used old water mill designs to test energy flow patterns. In Brazil, scientists studied how leaves fell in the wind, looking for natural patterns they could use. In Egypt, archaeologists brought in ancient designs for desert cooling systems, seeing how simple tools could solve complex problems. The alien observers sent daily reports to the Galactic Council. At first, these reports were full of amusement at Earth's primitive approach. But slowly their tone changed to confusion, then to concern. 1 month into the project, Dr. Freeman sat in his office, looking at a simple toy his grandson had left there. A Newton's cradle, 5 metal balls hanging in a row. He picked it up, watching how the energy transferred from one ball to another. "Sometimes," he said to himself, "the answer isn't in the stars. It's right here in front of us." The next morning, he called an emergency meeting. The main hall filled again, but this time the energy was different. Hope filled the air. "We've been thinking too much like them," Dr. Freeman said, holding up the Newton's cradle. "They see a black hole as something to be conquered. We need to see it as part of a system, like these balls. It's not about stopping the energy, it's about directing it." Dr. Thompson jumped in, like a cosmic Newton's cradle. "The black hole isn't our enemy, it's the first ball in the chain." The alien observers whispered among themselves as humans began drawing new plans. These weren't the complex diagrams the Council had provided. They were simpler, cleaner, based on basic physics principles that had worked on Earth for thousands of years. As the second month of the challenge began, humanity had found its path. It wasn't the high-tech route the Council expected. It was better. It was human. In his report that night, the lead alien observer wrote, "Warning to Council. Humans are not approaching this problem as expected. They are using methods so basic, so primitive, that our predictive models cannot analyze them. Recommend immediate review of challenge parameters." But it was too late. Project Prometheus had begun, and humanity was about to show the galaxy that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best ones. 3 months into Project Prometheus, Dr. Freeman stood in his lab late one night, staring at a spinning toy top on his desk. Next to him, Dr. Thompson watched with equal interest. Neither had slept properly for days, but something important was coming together in their minds. "Look at how it keeps spinning," Dr. Freeman said quietly. "Even when it starts to wobble, it doesn't fall right away. It fights to stay up." Dr. Thompson nodded, her eyes widening. Just like matter circling a black hole. The lab wasn't fancy. It didn't have the glowing screens and floating holograms that the alien observers used. Instead, it had whiteboards covered in simple drawings, toy tops, pendulums, and other basic physics toys scattered around. "The aliens think we're playing with toys," Dr. Freeman smiled, picking up the top. "But these toys teach us more about the universe than their fancy computers." An alien observer stood in the corner, writing notes. Its report would mention how the humans were still using primitive demonstration tools. But something in its posture had changed. It was leaning forward, interested despite itself. Dr. Thompson grabbed a whiteboard marker. "If a spinning top can fight against falling," she said, drawing quickly, "then maybe we don't need giant energy shields for our black hole harvester. Maybe we just need to make the energy dance." The next morning, they called an emergency meeting. Scientists filled the main hall, many looking tired but excited. Something was changing. They could feel it. "Everyone knows black holes destroy everything," Dr. Freeman began. "But that's not quite true. They don't destroy matter. They transform it. And that's what we've been missing." He held up the spinning top, letting it move across a curved piece of plastic. "Watch how it follows the curve, how it dances with gravity instead of fighting it." Dr. Thompson stepped forward. "We've been trying to build walls against a black hole. But what if we build a dance floor instead?" The room burst into excited conversation. Even the alien observers stopped writing their reports to watch. Young engineer Bill West raised his hand. "Like a skateboard park?" he asked. "You don't stop the skater. You give them a path to follow." "Exactly." Dr. Freeman pointed at him. "Nature doesn't work in straight lines. It works in curves, in cycles. We need to stop fighting the black hole and start working with its natural flow." The team spent the next week building simple models. They used water, sand, and even old skateboard ramps to test their ideas. The alien observers watched in confusion as highly educated scientists played with what looked like children's toys. But something amazing was happening. Each simple test showed the same thing. Their theory was working. "Look here," Dr. Thompson said one evening, pointing to a water whirlpool in a clear tank. "The water doesn't fight the drain. It creates a natural pattern. What if our energy harvester worked the same way?" Dr. Freeman nodded excitedly. "Instead of trying to stop the black hole's pull, we create channels for it, like a river delta spreading into the ocean." The alien observers were sending longer reports now. Their confusion was clear. How could such simple ideas work where advanced technology had failed? But the humans kept working, using basic principles they'd learned from watching rivers flow, tops spin, and leaves fall in the wind. They didn't need quantum computers to understand how nature moved. They'd been studying it since the first human watched a stone roll down a hill. By the end of the week, they had their first complete theory. It wasn't written in complex alien mathematics. Instead, it was explained with simple drawings and basic physics equations, the same kind taught in high schools around the world. "It's ready," Dr. Freeman said, looking at their work. "The aliens wanted advanced technology. Instead, we're giving them something better, natural law." The alien observer finally spoke up. "This theory, it's so simple." Dr. Thompson smiled. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly why it will work." As they prepared to build their first test model, the team felt a new confidence. They weren't trying to match alien technology anymore. They were doing something better. They were letting nature show them the way. The next phase would prove if their simple ideas could solve the galaxy's biggest challenge. The Moon Base Alpha testing facility wasn't what the alien observers expected. Instead of sleek, advanced machinery, the main testing room looked more like an old-fashioned workshop mixed with a science lab. Simple tools hung on walls, and regular computers sat next to basic measuring equipment. "Today we test our theory," Dr. Freeman announced to the gathered team. "We're going to create a tiny artificial black hole and try to harvest its energy." The alien observers had brought more of their kind to watch. They expected to see the humans fail spectacularly. One of them stepped forward. "Your equipment is too basic," it said. "You cannot possibly control a black hole with such primitive tools." Dr. Thompson smiled as she checked the testing chamber. Sometimes the best way to catch a mouse isn't with an expensive trap, but with a simple piece of cheese. The test chamber itself was surprisingly simple, a round room with curved walls designed like the inside of a seashell. Around it, sensors that looked more like old radio antennas than advanced technology stood ready to measure the results. Beginning test sequence. Bill West called out from his control station. "Creating micro black hole in 3, 2, 1. The room hummed. In the center of the chamber, space itself began to twist. A tiny point of absolute darkness appeared, no bigger than a grain of sand. The alien observers leaned forward, their instruments buzzing with readings. Then everything went wrong. The black hole began to pulse, growing unstable. Alarms blared. The alien observers stepped back, their expressions showing what could only be described as, "I told you so." But Dr. Freeman didn't look worried. He watched the readings carefully, then turned to Dr. Thompson. "Just like the toy top," he said quietly. She nodded, understanding immediately. "It's not failing. It's finding its balance." Bill adjusted some dials, simple controls that looked like they belonged on an old radio. The humming changed tone. The black hole's pulses began to smooth out, following the curved walls of the chamber like a marble rolling around a bowl. "Look," Dr. Thompson pointed to their energy readings. "It's not fighting the curves. It's dancing with them." The aliens' expressions changed from smugness to confusion. Their own instruments showed something impossible. The tiny black hole was stabilizing itself, falling into a natural rhythm with the chamber's design. Then Dr. Freeman pressed a simple red button, something that looked like it came from an old factory machine. A series of ordinary radio waves, the kind humans had been using for over a century, pulsed into the chamber. "Adding the music to our dance," he said with a smile. The effect was immediate. The black hole began to move in perfect harmony with the chamber's design. Energy readings spiked, but not with the violent force the aliens expected. Instead, it flowed smoothly, like water through a well-designed canal. "Impossible," one alien observer whispered. "You're using radio waves. Simple curves. Basic physics." "Sometimes," Dr. Thompson said, checking the readings, "the answer isn't in complexity. It's in simplicity." The test ran for exactly 1 hour. When they finally shut it down, the results were clear. Their simple design hadn't just worked. It had worked better than any simulation had predicted. "We didn't try to control the black hole," Dr. Freeman explained to the stunned aliens. "We gave it a path it wanted to follow. Like a river flowing to the sea, we just helped it find its natural way." The lead alien observer sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. The humans hadn't just passed a test. They'd completely changed the game. Their primitive solution worked better than anything the Council had ever seen. As the team celebrated their success, Dr. Freeman picked up the toy top from his desk. "Next step," he said, "is to build the full-scale version." Dr. Thompson nodded. "And show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Bill grinned as he powered down the systems. "Think they'll still call us primitive after this?" The alien observers, still struggling to understand how such a simple solution could work, watched as the humans began planning their next step. One thing was becoming clear: they had severely underestimated these primitive beings. The real challenge was about to begin. 6 months later, in the empty space near Alpha Centauri, the construction of humanity's full-scale black hole harvester began. The building site looked nothing like the alien shipyards elsewhere in the galaxy. Instead of sleek automated machines, human workers in spacesuits moved about, using tools that looked surprisingly ordinary. They're wearing mechanical suits, an alien observer commented, watching from their monitoring station. No anti-gravity, no neural links, just simple machines. Dr. Freeman floated near the main construction area, directing workers as they assembled the giant spiral structure. "We trust what we can fix with a wrench," he replied, patting his own mechanical spacesuit. "Can't repair quantum circuits with a hammer, but you can always tighten a bolt." The harvester itself was beautiful in its simplicity. Like a massive seashell in space, its curves followed the same patterns they'd found in their small-scale tests. Workers wielded huge panels into place, each one shaped to guide the black hole's energy rather than fight it. Dr. Thompson supervised the installation of their energy collection system. Instead of using complex alien technology, they'd built something that looked like a giant version of an old radio telescope, designed to catch and channel the black hole's power. "Your design is unusual," another alien observer noted, watching the construction. "All other races build rigid barriers. You build curves. Nature doesn't like straight lines," Dr. Thompson explained, checking measurements with a simple laser tool. "Why fight what comes naturally?" The work continued day and night. While other alien construction projects used artificial intelligence and automated systems, the humans relied on teamwork and simple, reliable machines. Every piece could be repaired or replaced easily. No complex parts that could fail at critical moments. Bill West, now in charge of the control systems, worked on installing the main computer. It wasn't the quantum supercomputer the aliens expected, but a robust system based on proven technology. "Your computing power is far below standard," an alien engineer pointed out, looking at the systems. Bill smiled as he connected another cable. "We don't need to calculate every quantum possibility," he said. "We just need to help the energy flow where it wants to go. Like steering a boat. You don't need to control every water molecule." As the weeks passed, the aliens watched with growing interest. The human approach was different from anything they'd seen before. Where other races tried to dominate space with technology, humans worked with it, adapted to it, danced with it. One day, as they prepared for the first full-scale test, Dr. Freeman gathered his team for a final check. "Everything we built here," he said, looking at the massive structure, "is based on things we learned on Earth. River flows, ocean currents, wind patterns. Nature's been teaching us these lessons for millions of years." Dr. Thompson nodded, adding, "We didn't try to reinvent the universe. We just paid attention to how it already works." The alien observers had stopped making dismissive comments about primitive technology. Instead, they studied the human design with increasing curiosity. The simplicity they'd mocked now seemed like elegance. As the final pieces came together, the structure looked like a giant metal flower in space, its petals ready to catch and channel the power of a black hole. No massive shields, no complex force fields, just carefully designed curves and channels. "Ready for power-up sequence," Bill announced from the control room. The room itself was simple, physical buttons and switches instead of holographic controls. Everything built to last, easy to fix, reliable. Dr. Freeman took one last look at the harvester before the test. "You know," he said to the nearest alien observer, "sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have been right in front of us all along." The alien nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "Perhaps," it said, "we have something to learn from your simplicity." As the team prepared for their first full-scale test, the galaxy watched. They'd built something unique, not by trying to match alien technology, but by staying true to human principles. Simple, reliable, natural. The moment of truth was approaching. The day of the full demonstration arrived. Ships from every corner of the galaxy gathered to watch, their advanced vessels forming a glittering ring around the human construction site. The Galactic Council's main observation vessel took the prime viewing position. Inside the control room, Dr. Freeman looked at his simple control panel. No fancy holograms, just reliable switches and dials. Dr. Thompson stood beside him, checking their measurements with traditional instruments. Bill sat at the main computer, his fingers hovering over a physical keyboard. "The Council is ready," an alien observer announced, "though they remain skeptical of your approach." Dr. Freeman nodded, then pressed the button for the station-wide announcement system. "This is how humans solve problems," he said to everyone listening. "Not by forcing our way through them, but by working with nature." The massive structure floated in space, its spiral arms gleaming in the starlight. It looked more like a giant metal flower than a piece of advanced technology. Several alien engineers could be heard commenting on its primitive design. "Beginning power-up sequence," Bill announced, typing commands into the computer. All systems responding normally. The harvester's spiral arms began to move, slowly rotating like a garden pinwheel in the wind. No force fields appeared. No quantum barriers activated. Just smooth, natural movement. "They're going to get themselves killed," one council member muttered over the open channel. Then it began. The nearby black hole's energy started flowing into the harvester's channels. But instead of fighting against the immense power, the structure moved with it. Like a leaf caught in a river's current, it found its natural position. "Energy flow at 10%. Dr. Thompson called out. Everything moving exactly as predicted. The alien observers' instruments began giving readings they couldn't understand. The harvester wasn't just collecting energy. It was doing it more efficiently than any design they'd ever seen. "Impossible," a council scientist declared. "They're using mechanical systems, simple radio waves, basic physics principles." 30% power, Bill reported. The structure continued its dance with the black hole's energy, each curve and channel working perfectly. Then something unexpected happened. The black hole itself began to stabilize. The violent energy bursts that usually surrounded it started to smooth out, falling into rhythm with the harvester's movement. "They're calming it down," an alien scientist gasped, "like taming a wild animal." Dr. Freeman smiled. "Not taming," he corrected, "dancing with it. Every part of nature has its own rhythm. You just need to learn to move with it." 50% power, Dr. Thompson announced. Structure integrity at 100%. No signs of stress. The council members watched in stunned silence as the human harvester continued its work. No failures. No emergencies. Just smooth, efficient operation, like a well-oiled machine. 75% power, Bill called out. All systems normal. The alien observers had stopped taking notes. They'd just watched, their previous certainty about human primitive technology completely shattered. "Full power achieved," Dr. Thompson finally announced. "The harvester is operating at maximum efficiency." The numbers appeared on screens throughout the observation fleet. The human device wasn't just working. It was performing better than any energy collection system ever created in the galaxy. And it was doing it with technology that any human engineer could repair with basic tools. "There's more," Dr. Freeman said to the watching council. "Look at the space around the black hole." The measurements showed something revolutionary. The harvester wasn't just collecting energy. It was stabilizing the entire region of space. The black hole's destructive influence on nearby systems had been reduced by 60%. "You've created a black hole control system," a council member said in awe. "No," Dr. Thompson corrected. "We created a partnership with it. The difference matters." As the demonstration continued, perfect hour after perfect hour, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations watched in amazement. Humans, the supposedly primitive species, had not just met their challenge. They had revolutionized their understanding of black hole physics. And they had done it all with simple, reliable technology that any human could understand and fix. The Galactic Council had one more surprise coming. The main chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Dr. Freeman stood at the speaker's podium. The Great Hall, filled with representatives from thousands of advanced civilizations, waited to hear humanity's final presentation. "We have not only met your challenge," Dr. Freeman began, his voice calm and clear, "but we have something else to show you." Dr. Thompson and Bill stood nearby, each holding simple tablet computers. No fancy alien tech, just standard human equipment. The alien observers who had watched their project from the start now sat among the council members, their earlier smugness replaced with genuine interest. "Your challenge asked us to build one black hole energy harvester," Dr. Freeman continued. "We built 5 more." The chamber erupted in surprised whispers. On the main screen, images appeared showing 5 more harvesters, each slightly different from the original. "The first harvester taught us something important," Dr. Thompson stepped forward to explain. "Each black hole has its own personality, like each river has its own flow. So we adapted our design." Bill touched his tablet, bringing up the technical data. "Each new harvester is simpler than the last. We kept removing parts until we found the perfect balance between function and simplicity." The council leader leaned forward. "You built 6 different systems in the time we gave you for one." "Yes," Dr. Freeman smiled, "because once you understand the basic principles, the rest is just, well, simple physics." He pressed a button on his podium. A new image appeared, showing all 6 harvesters working together in different parts of the galaxy. Each one was not only collecting energy, but actively stabilizing its black hole. "Impossible," one council member whispered. "Their technology is so basic." "That's exactly why it works," Dr. Thompson explained. "We don't rely on complex systems that can fail in a million ways. Our harvesters can be repaired by anyone with basic engineering knowledge." Bill displayed more data, "And we're sharing the designs with everyone. No patents, no secrets, just open knowledge for the whole galaxy." The council chamber grew even quieter at this announcement. In a galaxy where advanced technology was closely guarded, the idea of sharing such valuable knowledge freely was revolutionary. "But there's one more thing," Dr. Freeman said. He paused, looking around the chamber. "We designed these systems to work together. Each harvester strengthens the others, creating a network that could eventually stabilize every dangerous black hole in the galaxy." The implications hit the council like a wave. Humanity hadn't just solved their challenge. They had found a way to make the galaxy itself safer for everyone. "All this," the council leader said slowly, "with what we considered primitive technology." "Perhaps," Dr. Thompson suggested gently, "it's time to reconsider what primitive means." Dr. Freeman nodded. "The most advanced technology isn't always the best solution. Sometimes, the simplest answer is the right one." The council leader stood, its tall form towering over the podium. "Humanity," it announced, "has not only met our challenge but exceeded it in ways we never imagined possible. They have earned their place among us." But Dr. Freeman raised his hand. "With respect," he said, "we don't want to just join the council. We want to help change it." He gestured to the images of the harvesters. "Look what we achieved by combining your knowledge with our approach. Imagine what else we could all accomplish if we stopped dividing the galaxy into primitive and advanced and started working together." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the council leader nodded. "Perhaps," it said, "it is we who had something to learn from Earth." As the council chamber erupted in approving sounds from 1,000 alien species, Dr. Freeman, Dr. Thompson, and Bill shared a quiet smile. They had done more than prove humanity's worth. They had shown the galaxy a new way forward, and it all started with understanding the simple truth. Sometimes the most powerful solutions are the simplest ones. The day humans responded to the Galactic Council's challenge became the day the galaxy learned to see things differently.